Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we read letters from the voyages of St. Frances Cabrini as she traveled around the Western Hemisphere sharing the good news of Christ. Welcome, Catholic pilgrims. Today is a longer reading, but I invite you to sit back and just imagine Mother Cabrini traveling around off the coast of Chile in the late 1800s. Her descriptions are really quite interesting. She's going to spend some time in Antofagasta, and if you look at the city online, you will find that other than modern-day buildings, her descriptions are very accurate. She has some choice words to say about a Protestant pastor that is on board, and as a former Protestant, I don't blame her for her feelings on Protestantism. It has led millions away from the Eucharist, and there's just no benefit in that at all. Since this is a longer reading, let's go ahead and get started by turning to page 168. October 31st, Iquique. Within the space of a few days, we stopped at 4 ports: Iquique, Tocohilla, Cobaja, and Antofagasta. We had hoped to reach Iquique earlier in the morning so as to be able to go to Holy Communion, but the steamer arrived a little late at Pasagua, and the superintendent of the port would not let us land. So we had to pass the night there on board. In the morning, the staff was very busy importing and exporting the merchandise, as well as in receiving and landing passengers. Having arrived in Iquique at night, the vessel loaded very hurriedly, for we were a day behind and the captain did not wish to lose any more time. We had sufficient leisure, however, to go ashore before sunset and pay our respects to the bishop, as Monsignor Machi desired us to do. And so we seized the opportunity of meeting that worthy prelate, who is a real missionary to a population of 25,000 inhabitants. The first thing he did on taking up his episcopal duties was to build a beautiful and very devotional church, and he has since laid the foundation stone of a second, which he hopes to complete in 6 months, an easy task here, as the churches are made of wood. We visited the Blessed Sacrament rather hurriedly, as the evening was far advanced, and we did not relish the prospect of committing ourselves to the waves in the dark, more especially in this open port and for a distance of 5 miles. Mother Chiara, who finds this voyage very long, thought we had reached the Red Sea to open a mission in Africa. It is very funny indeed. The waters are of a bright red color, blood color, in fact. Perhaps it tends to remind us of the heavy wars between Chile and Peru in 1880, when so many fell victims, especially among the soldiers of Peru. At the summit of the mountains, which run along the coast and form a kind of wall, the Peruvian soldiers took up their position, but were surrounded by the Chileans, who are noted for their strength both on land and sea. They were driven over the edge and then precipitated, both horses and men, into the sea, and to such a depth, which in these parts always extends to some miles, that not even the remains of the combatants could be recovered by the Peruvians. Iquique is lovely. Its roads are large and straight. It has also pretty houses, though they are not very high, and well-kept shops, especially those of the Italians, who are quite numerous, and who are very comfortably circumstanced and are held in respect. There is, however, not a tree nor a blade of grass to be found anywhere. Neither is there a well nor a stream. Water for drinking and for domestic purposes has to be procured at the distance of a day's journey from the town, and so also with regard to cereals, flour, fruit, vegetables, wine, olives, sugar, coffee, forage, almost everything has to be imported by sea from other countries. So you may imagine what it costs to live in this city. Fortunately, it is inhabited by the rich, who pay the poor well, so that all live comfortably. The air is good, but the people here do not live long, and foreigners, who are not very strong, fall into rapid decline. Notwithstanding, the emissaries of the devil have penetrated here and have done grave harm. How is it that the emissaries of the devil have less fear than the followers of Christ? Let us reflect on this, to humble ourselves, for often we think of health and dangers before we give ourselves up to our divine Lord, the glory of God, and the salvation of souls. Since we left Panama, we had on board a Protestant minister, one of the worst type, being an Irishman from the northeast of Ireland. This minister came from Chicago and is stopping at Iquique. You should have seen how he tried to capture, now one and then another of the young men. With one he stayed till midnight, preaching his errors. Fortunately, the young man, as did the others, made light of him and his statements. When he saw that they made fun of him, he began preaching liberty of conscience. But he only made matters worse for himself. And then, with his Bible in his hand, he tried to force his diabolical interpretations on his listeners. He finished off by becoming, both he and his wife, objects of ridicule. So far, things were most consoling. He thought he was going to find those who would drink in the doctrine he offered them, but instead, he met with excellent Spanish Americans who were well instructed in their religion. But at Iquique, I fear he will play havoc. The only hope lies in the strength of the bishop, who is studying every means to weaken the efforts of these proselytizers and repair the harm they do. See how dangerous these times are to our faith, to our august religion, and to sound morals. For the emissaries of Satan, violent apostles of unrestrained liberty and freedom of speech, make use of all kinds of opportunities and snares, and go not only into the towns, but even into remote villages to spread their errors and doctrines, which are, as you know, condemned by the Church. It seems as if all the diabolical powers of hell have combined in directing their satanic efforts to combat and persecute the Church, her doctrines and her morals, her laws, her worship, her ministers, and all that she possesses of holiness and reverence. In the meantime, the weak, lukewarm, incautious, drink in the venomous errors, the fatal maxims of which pervert the mind and corrupt the heart, miserably dragging innumerable souls to eternal perdition. One cannot but grieve over this terrible war, which the demon never ceases to rage against our holy religion. One trembles for the frightful future that awaits the world if God does not show an efficacious way out, which must be something out of the ordinary, as the evils that are now affecting the Church are extraordinary. Continuing our journey and passing several ports, we arrived at Antofagasta, an important port for the merchants of Sucre and Potosi. It was a lovely morning, and we were longing to receive Holy Communion in order to be able to overcome the dangers and vehemence of the foaming waves, which at every stroke seemed about to capsize the boat. Antofagasta is a lovely city, which is being magnified by the construction of beautiful houses, squares, and pleasant walks. It has one Catholic church, which is really beautiful, and which helps one's devotion and is an aid to recollection. On our arrival, one Mass was just being finished, but another began immediately, as if providentially arranged for us. So we received Holy Communion and refreshed ourselves spiritually after the long fast we had been forced to make. When we had finished our devotions, we visited the parish priest, who is a very pious and zealous man. He was delighted to see us, hoping we would open a house there, but he was equally disappointed when he heard what our destination was. He learned all he could about our colleges, hoping that some day we might settle there. We made calls at Tocopilla, Cobija, Taotal, Caldera, Cayagol, and also at Coquimbo, where we spent the day, and where we rejoiced at seeing some vegetation after having sailed for so many days along the dry, arid coasts, where at night one could not enjoy the bracing sea air because it is marred by the fog, which rises from the land steeped in saltpeter. This fog falls in the shape of very fine rain, and instead of restoring, dries up every plant it meets and shortens the lives of the people who live there. At Coquimbo, we found that spring was advancing, and from the neighboring city, Serena, so famous in Chile, there arrived an abundance of lovely fruit, peaches, pears, figs, melons, and cucumbers, and all such things that one would expect not merely in spring but also in the summer and autumn. The grape, however, ripens only once a year, i.e. in the month of January, when it is full summer, whilst we in Lombardy freeze like crows. At last, the dear steamer Mapocho arrived at Valparaiso, our destination, the following morning. After having passed the length of that long desert, one seems to have entered the veil of heaven. It is a beautiful harbor, much like that of Genoa, and like it also favored by nature. It is really charming. It seems a large city and appears larger than it is, for it is built on the slope of a hill, or, to speak more correctly, on the boot of the Cordillera. It is so steep that from the lower part of the town, which consists of a long row of cottages, you ascend by means of a funicular railway, which resembles a house lift, and looking out of the windows, you discover you are hanging over a deep precipice. Mother Chiara closed her eyes, for it made her feel faint. As soon as we got into Valparaiso itself, we went to Mr. E. Escobar, who is a very distinguished person, and to whom we had been recommended. But there was great sorrow and desolation in his family, for Mrs. E. Escobar was very ill and almost on the point of death. The relatives who had come to help and console him were ill also. Mr. Escobar, however, wanted to see us and to show his interest in us. He sent us to the excellent parish priest, Padre Manero, who, in return, recommended us to the ladies of the Sacred Heart, who have a very nice school here. These good ladies received us as if we were their sisters and would not let us leave them. We had our luggage to see to, as also our crossing the Cordillera. We then went to visit Mr. Severin, another friend to whom we had been recommended. He was very kind and very energetic. He took all our luggage and deposited it in his own business premises, ready for dispatch to Buenos Aires at the proper moment. As his family is at Santiago, he asked us to go there and visit them, and also the city itself, which is really beautiful and deserves a visit. Even the ladies of the Sacred Heart extended a similar invitation. They wrote to their house there in order that a room might be prepared for us. 4 days later, we boarded the train and passed along the charming coast, which resembles the western coast of Genoa. Then we passed through superb villages and entered the mountainous region at the foot of the Cordillera. After passing through the Great Plains, we reached Santiago. The journey lasted 4 days. We went to the convent as if going to one of our own, and were received with such cordiality. The day afterward we visited His Grace, Archbishop Monsi Casanova, who was held in great esteem by the whole Republic. He received us very kindly and thought we had come to open a house, but when he heard I was on my way to Buenos Aires, he assumed an authoritative tone and said I had to rest a few months there after such a long voyage, and in the meantime visit the country and settle on a foundation to which I should return as soon as possible. Though his words were very pleasant to listen to, they were really like so many thorn pricks to my heart, as I saw that I was losing time in traveling, whilst I had so much to do, and the time seems to pass so quickly. But it is useless to worry about it, as the company of the Cordillera can afford us no means of passage owing to the mountain roads being closed to traffic by the snow, which is about 3 metros high, and the road will not be passable until November. We must have patience, for nothing happens by accident. Everything takes place according to the all-wise timetable of divine providence. God has his designs and wishes me, perhaps, to acquire a good knowledge of the Republic of Chile. In fact, both the sisters and Mr. Severin are so good. Mrs. Severin takes us out for carriage drives almost every day, so we have an opportunity of getting to know the country well. Santiago is very nice and interesting. It has wonderful churches, beautiful buildings, stupendous squares, and magnificent gardens, with enclosures for animals and fountains for fish, displaying every kind of plant representative of every climate and country. The character of the Chileans is gay, open, strong, and energetic. They love progress almost to excess. We showed them several of our prospectuses. Thus they became acquainted with the instruction given in our schools and tried their best to make us stay, promising to fill our school with children. Amongst other great men of the Republic, one, who has a child 4 years old, said, "You must come back within 2 years' time. If not, during the war we have with the Argentines, we'll take you prisoner, and then make you open a school for us here, as I want to send my little girl to you." I spent 25 long days here, long, indeed, for me, as I did not want to lose time. Finally, they informed us that the roads were open and that the first caravan was about to start. Both the sisters and other good friends tried to detain us, saying that the first journey over the Andes is often dangerous, and that if we were overtaken by bad weather, we should be in danger of losing our lives amidst the mountainous passes. But nothing could induce me to stop longer and continue that involuntary rest. I felt I was ready to face any difficulty. We first visited a chapel of St. Philomena, the Wonder Worker, so much venerated here. We received Holy Communion at her altar, begging her to unite with St. Rose in protecting us. We made our thanksgiving at the back of the church, near an altar on which is venerated a picture of the martyrdom of the saint. Whilst I was absorbed in prayer to the saint, who inspired me with great confidence, telling her all my needs and necessities, a very gentle voice whispered in my ear, "Esta es una pequeña limosnita." This is only a small offering. I was so absorbed in laying my petition before the saint that I thought the words I heard were an illusion of my imagination, and so I made no movement. Again, the soft voice repeated the same words. Then I raised my head, and looking around, I saw someone offering me pieces of gold. I turned and saw it was the holy man, Canyon M. Marchian Pereira, guardian of the sanctuary, who very humbly kept on saying, es pequeña mas es Saint Filomena que la da, and then quickly withdrew. The gift was of the value of 100 lira, which the good man felt urged to give us without being asked, and I received it all the more gratefully, as obviously the good saint had begun to help us even before we had finished our petitions to her. Having finished our thanksgivings, we went to thank the good canon, who said he was only too happy to help us, as we were missionaries. He made us presents of books, pictures, and the cords of the saint, which were worn by her devout clients. Then he gave me an image of the Wonder Worker, asking me to keep it in my pocketbook. He himself placed it there, saying, "Keep it there, Mother, and you will never be in need of money for your institute." I was very much impressed, as he seemed to be inspired. You may imagine that I shall treasure this picture as a precious relic. Thank you for listening to this longer reading, Catholic Pilgrims. I know everybody is busy, but it's so good to hear the writings of the saints, even if the writings are just describing everyday life, because we need to see and hear that they were people just like you and me, and they saw things and experienced things just like you and me. Tomorrow will be the last reading of this voyage, and I will give my reflection then. So until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.